On December 19, 2024, China's state-run Xinhua news agency reported from Shanghai and Chancay, Peru that after a 23-day voyage across the Pacific, the cargo vessel Xin Shanghai arrived at Shanghai's Yangshan port on December 18th. This marks the first official voyage on the Chancay-Shanghai route since the opening of Chancay Port in Peru. Chancay Port has quickly become a focal point of controversy, with corruption allegations surrounding Peruvian President Dina Boluarte making headlines just weeks after the port's inauguration. Located near Peru's capital, Lima, Chancay Port is South America's largest deep-water port. The project was built and is operated with 60% investment from China's state-owned shipping giant COSCO. It officially opened on November 14, 2024. Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Peru while attending the APEC summit that month and took part in the port's high-profile opening ceremony. In a video message, Presidents Xi and Boluarte hailed the project as a milestone. Xi said that from Chancay to Shanghai, we are witnessing not only the success of the Belt and Road Initiative in Peru, but also the birth of a new trade corridor between Asia and Latin America. However, just days after Xi's visit, the port was caught in controversy. Guatemalan media outlet Central America 360 reported that COSCO had rejected regulatory oversight from Peru's supervisory body for investment in public use transport infrastructure, OCITRAN. COSCO claimed that Chancay Port is a private port and went further to hire 6 lawyers to file a lawsuit against Peruvian authorities. The shipping company argued that the government oversight violated its constitutionally protected property rights and corporate freedoms. The company also sought a court injunction to prevent the supervisory body of investment in public transport infrastructure from exercising regulatory authority. Local media have compared this move to establishing a concession zone at Chancay Port, effectively demanding extraterritorial jurisdiction. Reports suggest that during the port's planning and construction phases, President Boluarte was involved in deals that compromised national interests. In March 2024, Peruvian judicial authorities raided her residence and the presidential palace, uncovering luxury watches and jewelry of unknown origin. These findings raised suspicions of possible ties to Chinese ambassador to Peru Song Yang and COSCO. Chancay Port is designed to accommodate the world's largest container ships, with an initial annual capacity of 1.5 million TEUs. When combined with Peru's largest existing port, Callao Port, the region's cargo throughput could surpass that of Brazil's Port of Santos, currently South America's largest port. According to Reuters, Chancay's container cranes are fully automated and can be managed remotely. Both Peru and China have hailed the project as a new chapter for South American trade, promising to enhance connectivity with Asia. Meanwhile, China's state-run Global Times called Chancay Port a new flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative, stating that it would deepen ties between China, Peru, and Latin America. COSCO's Chancay Corporate Affairs Manager, Mario de las Casas, told the media that the port will initially handle 1 million containers annually, with plans to increase capacity to 1.5 million in the future. Despite China and Peru emphasizing that Chancay Port is purely a commercial project, many analysts believe China's growing presence in South America has deeper strategic and even military implications. Taiwan's National Chengchi University professor Ding Fan questions whether Chancay Port holds the economic value China claims. He said the port in Peru is similar to Gwadar Port in Pakistan. It's unlikely to be a profitable venture. Given the circumstances, Peru may struggle to sustain the port's costs. Just like in Pakistan, China could pressure Peru into a long-term lease arrangement. And if the port isn't commercially viable, naturally, people will suspect that China may have military ambitions for it in the future. President of the Taiwan Association of University Professors, Chen Li-Fu, suggests that China's refusal to allow Peruvian oversight may not only be about military considerations, it could also create a loophole for money laundering. He said, by blocking Peruvian government oversight, China could be setting up an unchecked financial hub, allowing underground transactions and money laundering to operate undetected. On the surface, this looks like an issue of Peruvian regulatory authority, but in reality, even Chinese financial institutions wouldn't have control over what happens there. US military officials warn that if Chancay Port is designed to accommodate the world's largest container ships, it could also receive Chinese naval vessels. Recently retired US Southern Command General Laura Richardson has been vocal about China's expansion in the region, criticizing Beijing's development of dual-use facilities like Chancay Port. She said China is playing the long game in Latin America. These port facilities could serve as key access points for the Chinese military and critical naval routes in the future. Retired US Navy captain and current director of the China Maritime Studies Institute at the US Naval War College, Christopher Sharman, reinforced these concerns. He said, as a commercial port under China's Belt and Road Initiative, Chancay could provide logistical support for future Chinese naval deployments. He further noted that an increased Chinese naval presence in Latin America would give Beijing additional leverage to advance its strategic interests. This includes expanding Beijing's geopolitical influence and securing access to high-value goods and resources. Future Chinese naval operations in the region could help China challenge US dominance in its own hemisphere. Latin America trade expert and associate professor in Taiwan, Gong Guowei, noted that China has invested in over 100 ports worldwide. However, Chancay is its first major port project in South America built from scratch through active cooperation with Peru. Transforming a small fishing port into a major regional hub highlights Beijing's strong commitment to the project. He explained that Beijing's ambitions for Chancay extend beyond Peru. This port is strategically positioned to support resource exports from large South American countries, like Brazil's inland area and northern Argentina. However, the port's success will depend on inland logistics infrastructure, particularly the long-planned Twin Ocean Railway, a transcontinental rail line designed to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Spanning approximately 6,500 kilometers or 4,000 miles, the Twin Ocean Railway is expected to cost around $80 billion. The route begins at Chancay Port, extends through Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil, and integrates with Brazil's East-West Integration Railway, FICO-FIOL, ultimately reaching the Atlantic port of Ilhéus. Brazil is already advancing its 3,919-kilometer-long East-West Integration Railway, with China's China Railway No. 10 engineering group actively involved in the eastern segment. When discussing the Twin Ocean Railway, it's impossible to ignore Brazil, another South American powerhouse where China's influence is expanding rapidly. Brazil is the fifth largest country in the world by land area. With a population of 215 million, it is the most populous country in Latin America, the largest by land area, and has the highest GDP in the region. It also ranks as the world's 11th largest economy. With vast natural resources and a large labor force, Brazil has become a prime target for Beijing. It is not only a key member of the China-led BRICS alliance, but also China's largest trading partner in Latin America. Brazil's economy heavily relies on raw material exports, which align with China's role as the world's factory and its massive demand for commodities. At the same time, Brazil imports large volumes of finished goods from China, particularly in telecommunications and electrical equipment. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro warned about Brazil's growing economic dependence on China, particularly in strategic industries. He pointed out that Brazil holds over 85% of the world's nickel reserves and accused China of exerting excessive control over these resources. He called the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, exploitative and said that China isn't just buying from Brazil, they are trying to take over Brazil. During his presidency, Bolsonaro refused to sign onto China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. However, China's influence in Brazil had already been expanding for years. In 2015, under the left-wing Workers' Party government, Brazil signed a $2.2 billion investment deal with China's State Grid Corporation to construct a 2,500-kilometer transmission line connecting the Belo Monte Dam in the Amazon to Rio de Janeiro. Experts see this project as part of China's global energy interconnection, a framework similar to the BRI. Since taking office in 2023, Brazil's current president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, has worked to strengthen political and economic ties with China. However, Beijing's promises to create thousands of jobs in Brazil remain largely unfulfilled, while at the same time, Chinese criminal networks are expanding their reach. According to a report by Spanish-language media Infobe, China's electric vehicle giant BYD is facing a major legal battle in Brazil. Its factory construction project in Camacari, Bahia has come under judicial investigation over allegations of forced labor. The case quickly gained global attention after Brazilian authorities intervened and rescued 163 Chinese workers, who were suspected victims of human trafficking and forced labor. Beyond economic concerns, Chinese criminal activity in Brazil has reached alarming levels. In a major police operation, authorities in Sao Paulo dismantled a methamphetamine drug ring operated by Chinese and Mexican nationals. Authorities issued 60 provisional arrest warrants, including for 32 Chinese suspects. Among the Chinese suspects was Pi Kangdong, who was found with detailed chemical formulas and instructions for methamphetamine production on his phone, as well as drug trafficking conversations, banking transactions, and numerous photos of drugs and firearms. Other arrested Chinese suspects included Lin Xiaozhe, Zhe Li, and Wu Changhui. Police searches of their apartments uncovered 2 kilograms of methamphetamine, half a kilogram of which had been transported by another arrested suspect, Zheng Xiaoyuan. Zheng Xiaoyuan was previously arrested in 2020 and accused of leading a criminal syndicate that stole 5,000 COVID-19 test kits, 2 million masks, and other pandemic supplies from Sao Paulo Guarulhos International Airport. For years, Zheng also acted as a key intermediary between Chinese and Brazilian government officials. According to Infobe, at the time of his 2020 arrest, he was serving as vice president of the Brazil-Chinese Association and had frequent access to government offices in Sao Paulo. He was even photographed alongside former Sao Paulo state governors João Doria and Geraldo Alckmin, the latter of whom is now Brazil's vice president. Chinese organized crime groups have been expanding their footprint in Brazil for years. In December 2024, authorities arrested Liu Bitong, a fugitive gang leader who had been on the run since 2017. He was captured in Roraima, a state bordering Venezuela. Liu's organization is linked to the Chinese triads and has been rooted in Sao Paulo for over a decade. His group has been accused of murder and extortion, with Chinese business owners in the region being primary targets. Alongside organized crime, China's surveillance and intelligence operations in Brazil are becoming a serious concern. A recent report by The Economist revealed that Beijing has been turning overseas Chinese nationals into informants, using them to gather and relay intelligence back to the Chinese government. While no Chinese citizens have been formally charged with espionage in Brazil, investigative sources told Infobe that Brazil remains a key hub for China's covert operations. In 2022, the Spanish human rights NGO Safeguard Defenders exposed that China was running 3 illegal overseas police stations in Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and an undisclosed third city. Despite these revelations, Brazilian authorities have yet to launch a formal investigation into these operations. As China's economic downturn deepens and Beijing fails to deliver on key investment promises, Brazilian President Lula da Silva's vision of closer ties with China is losing momentum. In October 2024, a senior Brazilian government advisor confirmed that Brazil has decided not to join Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Instead, the government is seeking alternative investment partnerships with China. With this move, Brazil becomes the second BRICS nation after India to reject the BRI. India has been a vocal critic of the BRI for years. India's former ambassador to Poland and an advisor to African governments, Dr. Deepak Vohra, has called China's BRI the greatest scam of the century. An anonymous analyst believes the BRI is more than just economic expansion and debt diplomacy. They argue that it is also a global infrastructure for China to coordinate and control international criminal networks. The CCP has a long history of working with organized crime. After the CCP took power in 1949, it reportedly struck a deal with China's criminal syndicates. This was to help the Communist Party suppress political dissidents through violence and intimidation, and in return, the syndicates would be allowed to continue their illegal operations. Those who refused faced elimination. In October 1984, then CCP leader Deng Xiaoping openly acknowledged the relationship between the Chinese government and organized crime. He said as long as organized crime groups support national interests, the CCP is prepared to cooperate with them. He even described the triads as patriotic forces, asserting that among their members were good people who had helped protect Chinese officials abroad. Senior fellow at Brookings Institution and co-director of the Improving Global Drug Policy Project, Wanda Felba Brown, revealed in a report that Chinese organized crime extends far beyond global drug trafficking and money laundering. More than 100 organized crime groups worldwide have direct ties to the CCP. US officials warn that a new global underground banking system has emerged, serving both Mexican drug cartels and Chinese elites seeking to move illicit money out of China. Chinese underground banking networks help launder cartel money through sophisticated methods, including mirror accounts, Hawala-style underground banking systems, cryptocurrency transactions, black market currency exchanges, jewelry and precious metal trades, and real estate investments. Before China entered the game, Mexican and Colombian cartels paid up to 10% in fees for money laundering services. But Chinese underground networks now dominate the market, offering fees as low as 1 to 2% with near-instant transactions, undercutting their competition. Former DEA agent Christopher Urban, who spent 24 years investigating global drug trafficking, explains that Chinese money launderers have become so critical to fentanyl traffickers that they now control the entire money laundering operation for Mexican cartels, eliminating all competition. Across Latin America, criminal networks in Mexico, Brazil, and Peru are receiving vast supplies of drug precursor chemicals and sophisticated money laundering services, all under the banner of China's BRI. Experts warn that these operations are not just business deals but a strategic move by Beijing to tighten its grip on organized crime in the region. Despite Brazil rejecting China's BRI, Xi Jinping is not giving up. Instead, China is offering Brazil massive financial incentives to secure its cooperation. On November 20th, 2024, Brazilian media reported that China Development Bank signed an agreement to provide Brazilian Development Bank, BNDES, with 5 billion yuan, equivalent to approximately 690 million US dollars. This marks the first ever foreign currency transaction in BNDES's history. The 3-year loan will provide funding for multiple development projects through BNDES, expanding its financial reach across key sectors. BNDES President Aloyzio Mercadante stated that the bank is expanding its international partnerships to diversify financing sources and reduce reliance on the US dollar. Analysts see this as part of China's broader strategy to weaken US financial dominance. However, what China's state media didn't mention was that after signing multiple deals with Xi Jinping, Brazilian President Lula da Silva made it clear that Brazil remains commercially neutral. This indicates that Brazil intends to maintain and further strengthen its existing trade relations with the United States. Lula's stance at the time was also closely tied to the possibility of Donald Trump's return to the White House. Trump has repeatedly warned that there is no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade or anywhere else, and any country that tries should say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. Recently, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social, stating that America is going to require a commitment from these seemingly hostile countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs. Beyond flooding the US with fentanyl from Mexico and covertly infiltrating spies via illegal immigration, China is also establishing Brazil, Peru, and other Latin American nations as key operational hubs to undermine US influence. President Donald Trump understands that behind the criminal networks in Mexico, Peru, and Brazil lies a far greater threat: the Chinese Communist Party. He sees this as the start of a first showdown with China, one with no room for retreat.